Imagine a vapor that can turn water into ice using absolutely nothing but the warmth of a tiny fire. There are no electric compressors, no humming engines, no copper wiring, and zero monthly utility bills. This technology kept provisions frosty in rural American farmhouses long before the electric grid ever reached them. It produced solid ice right in the middle of arid deserts. It operated off a simple kerosene lantern, a wood-burning stove, or a small afternoon campfire. And a compact model of this marvel cost a mere $50. Yet, it vanished from our kitchens completely. It wasn't because it broke down. It absolutely still functions. In fact, it is operating right this very second inside the most massive commercial cold storage facilities on the globe. The exact same vapor that preserved dairy on a 1,928 homestead is deep freezing goods in massive industrial plants. While you hear these words, therefore, a specific thought ought to trouble you. If it was highly affordable, required zero electricity, and functioned for generations with practically zero mechanical parts to fail, why did it disappear from the one location that mattered the most? Your own kitchen. The explanation has nothing to do with physics. The physical laws haven't shifted. The explanation comes down to profit, about who possessed it, who could measure its usage, and who could peddle that exact same convenience back to you endlessly, decade after decade, until the end of time. This vapor is ammonia, and this is the chronicle of how the most brilliant, chilling device ever engineered for a standard residence was subtly shoved out of the way. It wasn't defeated in an honest contest. It was outfunded and outpromoted by a synthetic compound that could be trademarked, alongside a corporate strategy designed to invoice you every single month. Allow me to guide you back, because this narrative predates the electrical grid itself. We begin in 1823. A brilliant young Englishman named Michael Faraday, operating out of the Royal Institution in London, was playing around with vapors inside sealed glass piping. He grabbed an ammonia compound, warmed up one tip of a curved tube, and witnessed something incredible occur at the opposite, chilly end. The ammonia transformed into a fluid, and the moment he allowed that fluid to vaporize once more, it sucked the heat away from its entire environment. It became freezing, intensely freezing. That was the origin point of it all. Faraday had demonstrated the total underlying concept with just a curved piece of glass and a small fire. You can transport warmth using a chemical, and you can power that entire sequence using nothing but heat itself, rather than an engine. Grip firmly onto that concept because it represents the core of this entire system. Warm one side, chill the opposite. Warm one side, chill the opposite. You will notice me repeat this because the whole apparatus exists entirely within that singular phrase. Let's leap ahead to 1858. A French innovator by the name of Ferdinand Carré grabbed Faraday's core concept and engineered it into a fully functional contraption. His ammonia absorption device was capable of generating ice, massive blocks of actual ice. During the American Civil War, when the Union naval blockade isolated the southern territories from the natural ice blocks that were traditionally transported down from the frozen northern lakes, Carré's ammonia contraptions were secretly brought across borders and utilized to manufacture ice in the sweltering southern heat. Picture a French creation chilling Confederate medical wards and food rations, completely powered by the warmth of a blazing fire. Ponder that for a moment. It was 1860. A unified national power grid wouldn't be established for half a century, yet ammonia was already busy manufacturing ice. So, why exactly does it function? Allow me to offer the straightforward explanation because the underlying physics is truly elegant, and you certainly don't require an advanced diploma to grasp it. Whenever a liquid transforms into a vapor, it devours heat. It is forced to. In order to break free from a liquid state into a gaseous one, the particles require energy, and they snatch that energy from whatever happens to be close by. That is exactly why rubbing alcohol feels chilly against your flesh. It is why you tremble when you step out of a swimming pool on a windy afternoon. The moisture evaporating right off your skin is yanking the warmth directly out of your body. Ammonia is an absolute master at this process. It boils, meaning it transitions from fluid to vapor, at roughly -28 degrees Fahrenheit, or -33 degrees Celsius. That implies that at normal everyday temperatures, ammonia is frantically trying to become a gas, and the moment you permit it to do so, it extracts a massive quantity of heat from everything around it. Ounce for ounce, ammonia pulls in more heat when vaporizing than practically any other standard cooling agent ever utilized. Far more than Freon, and certainly more than the synthetic replacements that followed. Therefore, the secret behind a cooling apparatus is wonderfully basic in theory. You allow ammonia to vaporize inside the enclosed area you want to keep cold, where it aggressively devours the heat. After that, you must convert it back into a fluid so you can utilize it once more. Inside your modern kitchen fridge today, an electric compressor handles that squeezing action. It relies on grid power. It vibrates. It drains your wallet every single hour it operates. However, a completely different method exists. The path Faraday alluded to. The path Carré constructed. You can execute the entire sequence using warmth instead of electrical currents. You introduce a secondary material, typically water, which absolutely loves to soak up ammonia vapor. The ammonia vaporizes and performs its chilling duties, then gets absorbed by the water. Next, you introduce heat, a small fire, a gas jet, a kerosene wick, and that warmth boils the ammonia right back out of the liquid water, pushing it away to condense back into a pure liquid, and the entire sequence kicks off once again. Warm one side, chill the opposite, 0 moving components, no engine, 0 electricity. This process is known as absorption refrigeration, and for a short, brilliant period in American history, it could be found resting inside regular households. The most well-known model goes by a name that almost sounds like a child's plaything, the Crosley Icyball. Back in 1927, the Cincinnati-based Crosley Corporation started marketing a gadget engineered by a Canadian inventor named David Forbes Keith. Visually, it resembled a pair of metal spheres linked together by an arched metal tube, all resting on a tiny base. One of these spheres contained a blend of water and ammonia. To operate it, you simply place the designated hot sphere above a small fire, a kerosene heater, or a gas burner for roughly 90 minutes. That warmth forced the ammonia to travel out and over into the cold sphere. After that, you just picked the entire contraption up, placed the cold sphere inside your insulated icebox, and simply walked away. For the remainder of the day, that chilling sphere sucked the warmth right out of that enclosed space. It preserved your groceries for approximately 24 hours from just one single session of heating. Absolutely 0 electricity. Never. You merely warmed it up again the following morning, and it set you back roughly $50. A farming family living miles from any electrical poles, and keep in mind, throughout the late 1920s, the vast majority of American farms lacked power lines, could chill their meals for the mere cost of a tiny bit of fuel and an hour of warmth. This was a device with practically nothing inside it that could shatter or snap. Moreover, the Icyball wasn't the sole player in the game. A company called Servel manufactured gas-powered absorption fridges that operated off a constant, tiny gas fire. These units were gorgeous, totally quiet appliances. There was 0 compressor hum, and absolutely no rattling sounds. They became massively successful across rural parts of America, specifically in regions where the electric grid hadn't quite stretched to yet. Believe it or not, a number of those exact Servel fridges are still operating right now, almost 100 years later, sitting in remote cabins and off-grid properties. If you browse through off-grid internet message boards, you'll stumble across folks who will swear to you, with almost religious respect, that their gas-powered Servel from the 1940s has survived longer than 3 separate modern electric fridges, all without ever requiring a single maintenance call. Allow me to repeat that specific point, because it is incredibly important. A cooling unit lacking a compressor, lacking a motor, and possessing basically 0 moving bits can operate for 50, 60, even 70 years. There is virtually nothing internally that can break down. And right here is where you begin to notice the massive issue. It certainly wasn't an issue for the consumer, but rather a massive hurdle for the corporations trying to sell you the concept of cold. Because here is a harsh reality regarding the corporate world. There is absolutely no profit to be found in a product that functions perfectly for 7 decades and never snaps in half. You cannot generate a reliable monthly income from a simple little fire. However, before we dive into exactly who shoved this technology into the dirt, I need to share a story about 2 of the most brilliant thinkers of the 20th century. These men trusted this concept so deeply that they dedicated years of their existence to perfecting it. Back in the late 1920s, a pair of physicists became deeply troubled by news reports detailing families tragically losing their lives while they slept. You see, the pioneering electric fridges from that time period relied on highly dangerous vapors such as methyl chloride and sulfur dioxide. So, whenever the internal seals gave out, or if the mechanical pump sprang a leak, those toxic fumes could silently poison a household in the middle of the night. These 2 scientists made the choice to invent a fridge completely free of mechanical seals that could break. 0 pumps, 0 motors, absolutely nothing that could degrade and slowly leak out. Those 2 individuals happened to be Albert Einstein and a former pupil of his named Leo Szilard. And yes, I am talking about the famous Einstein. From 1926 through 1933, Einstein and his partner drew up and secured patents for a variety of different refrigerators. Their most recognized blueprint utilized a mixture of water, butane, and ammonia, and it featured exactly 0 moving mechanical pieces. It was powered strictly through basic heat and internal pressure. They were officially handed a United States patent for this creation. Patent number 1,781,541, which was awarded to them in the year 1930. Both Einstein and Szilard fully trusted the science of absorption refrigeration. They viewed it as far less dangerous, much less complicated, and significantly tougher than the engine-powered alternatives. Their ultimate goal was to hand humanity a chilled cabinet that literally could not break. So, where did it all go wrong? Why do you currently have an electric compressor buzzing away in your home, rather than a completely silent, tightly sealed, heat-powered appliance that Albert Einstein actually co-invented? During that exact same year of 1930, when Einstein secured his paperwork, a chemical scientist named Thomas Midgley Jr., who was employed by General Motors and their Frigidaire brand, showed off a brand new type of cooling agent to the public. To demonstrate its safety, he took a deep breath of the vapor directly into his lungs, and then gently exhaled to extinguish a nearby candle. It didn't burn, and it wasn't poisonous. It went by the name Freon, and Freon completely altered the landscape, but not because it was superior at making things cold. According to strict physical science, ammonia is genuinely a far better and more capable chilling agent than Freon could ever hope to be. Freon achieved victory for a totally separate motive. Freon was something that a corporation could legally own. If you have stuck around this long, you already grasp the mechanics of cooling better than nearly anyone who has ever paid a summer utility bill. You recognize that thermal energy can move a refrigerant just as effectively as a mechanical engine. You understand why a closed-loop device totally devoid of moving components can easily outlive its original buyer. And if you wish to dive even deeper, the complete backstory of these discarded low-power chilling techniques, a step-by-step breakdown of the absorption concept, the secure contemporary gear still utilizing it, phase change setups, evaporative coolers, earth tubes, complete with diagrams and parts lists laid out clearly, I have assembled it all into one single digital manual, and the link is right down in the description. It acts as the ultimate survival record for this buried thermal wisdom, structured so that anybody willing to learn can carry it forward. Now, let me break down exactly how they managed to bury it. Ammonia is an organic substance. It is found everywhere. Your own biological system produces it. It sits in the dirt, in the atmosphere, in living organisms. No corporation globally can claim a patent on ammonia, simply because no corporation invented it. Anybody could purchase it. Anybody could utilize it. There were no massive fortunes to be extracted from peddling a cooling agent that the natural world provides for free. Freon was a completely different story. Freon was an artificial compound, a chlorofluorocarbon, synthesized through a partnership between General Motors and DuPont known as kinetic chemicals. It was heavily guarded by legal patents. You were forced to purchase it directly from them. Every single fridge that ran on it, every air conditioner, every chilling apparatus, tethered the consumer to a supply monopoly dictated by DuPont and General Motors. Nobody could legally own the chill of vaporizing ammonia, yet DuPont could absolutely own Freon. That solitary reality warped the total trajectory of how we cool our living spaces. The corporate world dumped its capital into the apparatus that required an exclusive chemical and an electric engine, simply because both of those elements could be marketed, metered, and sold to you repeatedly. The pump requires electricity, and the utility grid invoices you every 30 days. The chemical is exclusive, forcing you to acquire it from a single vendor. The appliance is incredibly complex, packed with moving parts that grind down, guaranteeing you will need to buy a replacement every 10 to 15 years. Contrast that with the Icyball, a tiny fire and a closed metal sphere that functions for a lifetime. Contrast it with the gas Servel, a pilot flame, and basically zero parts to ever snap. It wasn't conquered through superior engineering. It was simply outfunded. The massive advertising funds of the 1930s and 40s were dumped exclusively into the motorized, Freon-driven appliance. The push to electrify rural America, which strung power cables to remote farming properties in those decades, meant the absorption fridge's massive perk, operating completely independent of electricity, gradually ceased to matter for most households. Once every home was hooked to the grid, the industry had every incentive to push a box that drained power from that grid, generated recurring bills, and inevitably broke down. The absorption fridge wasn't outlawed. It wasn't confiscated. It was merely abandoned, starved of funding and marketing, while society was actively trained to believe that chilling requires a buzzing compressor, a proprietary chemical you can't make, and a spinning utility meter bolted to the side of your house. There is a final layer of irony to this tale, and it is almost too poetic. Freon, the triumphant chemical, ultimately proved to be ripping a massive hole straight through the ozone layer. The exact chlorofluorocarbons that pushed ammonia aside were actively shredding our upper atmosphere. Back in 1987, nations globally signed the Montreal Protocol to eliminate them. The specific compound that shoved ammonia into the dirt under the guise of safety was internationally outlawed for being devastating to the planet. And what about ammonia? Ammonia harms absolutely zero ozone. Its ozone depletion rating is flat zero. Its global warming impact is practically zero. The very cooling agent that the corporate world walked away from ended up being the most environmentally flawless option of them all. That is precisely why, if you step inside a massive cold storage warehouse, a commercial food processing plant, or the mechanical bays underneath a professional ice hockey rink, you will almost certainly stumble upon ammonia. The commercial sector refers to it as R717. Professional engineers managing massive complexes will freely admit it stands as one of the most capable refrigerants ever discovered. Browse any commercial HVAC message board, and you will spot seasoned pros stating bluntly that for heavy-duty cooling, ammonia is unbeatable for efficiency, and that the industrial sector didn't abandon it for a single moment. They merely removed it from your personal kitchen. So, why not just reinstall it in your house? Why won't I provide you instructions to construct a homemade Icyball in your garage this weekend? Simply because of the single genuine truth hidden within their old safety claims. Ammonia truly is hazardous. I am going to be entirely upfront with you regarding this, because honesty about these limitations is the entire focus of this channel. Ammonia is toxic. Inhaling a dense cloud of it can kill you. It is highly corrosive. It attacks your eyes, your respiratory system, and your skin. and under highly specific conditions involving air concentration, it is flammable. The reason commercial ammonia setups remain secure is that they are assembled, welded, scrutinized, and serviced by certified experts utilizing leak sensors, massive ventilation, and automated emergency protocols governed by rigid regulations. The reason those vintage domestic units eventually drew genuine suspicion is that a rupture inside a closed residential room genuinely posed a lethal threat. So, let me be perfectly clear. This is history and physics. This is absolutely not a build tutorial. Do not attempt to fill, crack open, fix, or manufacture an ammonia chilling contraption on your own. Do not slice into a vintage machine to peek at how it operates. If you desire the silent, low-energy brilliance of absorption refrigeration in your own home, the correct avenue is commercially certified hardware. A modern propane or natural gas absorption fridge, the exact variety marketed for recreational vehicles and remote off-grid cabins, engineered and welded shut by actual manufacturers, evaluated against modern safety codes. These units genuinely exist. They operate quietly on a tiny flame, precisely like the vintage Servel units did. You can go purchase one tomorrow. You should absolutely never try to build one. That is the honest boundary of safety, and I refuse to step over it just to make a dramatic video. Now, let me address the inquiries I already know you're formulating, because they are the exact same queries folks post in the comments whenever this topic arises. The initial question invariably revolves around the price tag. Will this actually save me cash? Here is the genuine reality. A gas absorption fridge consumes more overall energy than a modern electric one, because utilizing heat to power the process is fundamentally less efficient than a motorized compressor, watt for watt. Therefore, if you have access to cheap utility power, an absorption unit won't shrink your monthly statement. Its true perk isn't raw efficiency. Its perk is total autonomy. It functions where power cables don't exist. It functions during grid failures. It operates on fuel you can stockpile yourself. It hums along silently, with practically zero components to snap for decades. That is exactly what you are paying for. Not a reduced utility bill, but an appliance that completely ignores the grid. The next question focuses on climate. What environments make this viable? Absorption cooling doesn't give a damn about your local weather the way an evaporative cooler does. Swamp coolers only function in arid climates. Absorption units operate flawlessly anywhere scorching or sticky, arid or damp because the system is completely enclosed. It isn't dumping humidity into your living space. There are zero indoor condensation issues, no mold hazards stemming from the cooling cycle itself, because the vapor remains trapped inside a sealed circuit. That stands as one massive perk. It holds over several of the other historical methods we've examined on this channel. Question number 3 tackles longevity, and honestly, the answer here is the greatest piece of this entire saga. Because it features virtually zero moving components, a properly manufactured absorption fridge can operate for an unbelievably long duration. Those 1940s, Servel's still chilling groceries in remote cabins, aren't some urban legend. They are absolute proof that a closed loop lacking a compressor has almost nothing inside it to degrade. You just keep up with the flame and the airflow, and it simply refuses to quit. 50 years, 60 years, even longer. That is a life cycle the contemporary appliance sector possesses zero desire to offer you, because a fridge that survives for 6 decades is a fridge you only pay for a single time. The final question is the trickiest, and I've technically addressed it, but it warrants repeating. Is it secure? An ammonia loop is only as secure as the welding and the upkeep behind it. That is exactly why you purchase a professionally certified appliance and absolutely never try to engineer one yourself. The scientific concept is free. The physical construction is not a weekend hobby. Now, zoom out with me and observe the broader outline of this narrative, because it extends far beyond a single chemical. Prior to the Second World War, we possessed a peaceful era of climate control that demanded very little from us. We had the absorption fridge powered by a tiny fire. We had the massive adobe structures of the Pueblo and Hopi architects in the American Southwest. thick barriers that absorbed the afternoon sun and bled it off gradually throughout the night, keeping the interior steady while the harsh desert outside fluctuated by 40 degrees. We had the Persian wind catchers, the badgers, snatching the air currents and drawing them down into the living spaces. Some were even linked to subterranean aqueducts that chilled the draft before it ever touched human skin. We had the deep root cellars and the spring houses, the night-chilled masonry, the shaded courtyards. Every single bit of it operated purely on physics. Not a single piece of it operated on a utility meter. And one after another, these concepts weren't debunked. They were never proven technically incorrect. They were simply abandoned because not one of them could be resold to you over and over. You cannot charge a homeowner a monthly fee for a thick mud wall. You cannot slap a meter onto a tiny flame the way you can measure electrical wattage. You cannot copyright the thermal mass of a brick or the vaporization point of ammonia. There is no corporate quarterly earnings report hidden inside a mechanism that survives your entire lifetime. Therefore, this wisdom didn't perish in an honest battle of innovation. It was financially smothered, it was out-promoted, and it was discreetly scrubbed from the brochures and the storefronts. Eventually, it faded from our collective memory until an entire generation was raised, trusting that the sole method to survive the summer heat is a vibrating metal box that invoices you indefinitely and perishes in 10 years. The saga of ammonia represents the most crystal-clear example of this cycle. A chilling agent that the Earth provides without charge, that leaves the ozone completely intact, that operates on basic warmth, that powered appliances surviving for generations shoved out of our kitchens to make room for a trademarked synthetic compound that tore a hole in the heavens, bolted to an engine reliant on the power grid, inside a box, engineered to hit the landfill. Einstein and Szilard recognized the superior route nearly 100 years in the past. They secured a patent for a chilling box with 0 moving pieces to break, engineered to keep households secure and to endure. Society ventured down an alternate path, the path with the spinning utility meter installed on it. And the vapor those brilliant men relied on is currently buried deep in the substructures of our commercial freezing industry doing the heavy lifting, merely concealed from the spaces where we actually reside. The wisdom was never genuinely misplaced. It was simply never marketed to you. Now, you possess it. The most potent knowledge is almost always the most ancient. It doesn't require a monthly subscription. It doesn't shatter on a planned timeline. It merely waits patiently for anyone determined enough to recall it. So, here is what I am asking of you. Head down to the comments and let me know your location. And answer one question. Are you still tethered to a utility cable for every chilled item you possess? Or have you ever stood before a vintage Servel fridge that has been ticking away longer than you've been breathing? If your grandparents had one sitting on a rural homestead, operating silently on gas in a kitchen corner, I want to read that account. Those personal recollections are the true historical record, and this channel is the place we preserve them. And if you share the conviction that the most brilliant solutions continuously get buried, not because they faltered, but because a corporation couldn't figure out how to invoice you for them every 30 days, then stick around. In the next episode, I'm going to transport you inside the desert wind catchers of ancient Persia, the badgers. These are architectural marvels documented for hundreds of years that refrigerated massive structures using nothing but the geometry of the breeze. And I will detail exactly why current municipal building regulations leave virtually 0 room for them anymore. Ammonia froze water using a simple flame. They understood this a century ago. They simply determined that you didn't need to. Well, now you understand it too. And the moment you comprehend it, it can never be stolen from you again. That is the entire purpose here. Take this forward and share it with someone else.